It's not coming home. We're not singing Wonderwall. But trust me, it is still not over for England. And as Fabrizioromano has posted on his socials in the past few hours, Thomas Tuchel is set to stay as the England manager for the 2028 Euros. And this is such a significant step because after England's last night defeat to Argentina, the 1-2 defeat, Tuchel is being massively criticized. And yes, he deserves all that. He deserves the criticism for the decisions he took, for the substitutions that he introduced, for the game plan that he went on ahead with after England scored their first goal, their first and only goal, which is also one of the complaints that many people do have, and it is absolutely justified that they do. And it is even more surprising of a defeat because under Thomas Tuchel, England have shown that they are ready to play the kind of football that Gareth Southgate's England were not ready to play ever. And this is why they always lost out in so many finals, so many knockout games. They always followed the same defensive strategy. They always shied away from the ball. They always refused to take responsibility of finishing the game off. And this is what Thomas Tuchel had been proving, that he was able to take the responsibility of the game, be not afraid to attack and keep attacking until the very last minute, and not shy away from the ball. But after England went ahead at 1-0 last night, it was a complete reversal. It's like Thomas Tuchel took a complete U-turn on his own tactics. It's like England suddenly reversed their strategies and they followed along in the same trajectory. They followed along in the same path that Egypt, that Switzerland, that so many other teams in recent years have done against Argentina. Argentina, on paper, and even in reality, are still not as good of a team as England is. Yes, they have Messi. Yes, they have Enzo Fernandez. They have Julianalvarez. They have some of the best players in the world on an individual level. And they all shone through yesterday. But as a team, and the kind of defenders they have, the kind of attackers England have, compared relatively to the kind of defense that Argentina possess, England were a much better team. And they have once again come down to the point where they are still regretting the decisions made, where they are still mourning the talents they had and the potential of what could have been a great tournament. But again, we've seen this over the past 2 or 3 decades. This is what happens with England every single time. And under Gareth Southgate, they did have some sort of hope of reaching to a level that the previous English teams hadn't been able to. They were playing much more coordinated. They were playing with a sense of real identity. But that identity under Gareth Southgate was only limited to a certain extent, and that extent ultimately went on to cost England in big games, in knockout games. And under Thomas Tuchel now, that there were some signs of, especially after the Croatia game, and especially during the Mexico game, that England could see out these wins, that England would not always be afraid of taking these teams on, taking these intimidating teams on, whether physically or when it comes to the kinds of players they have. England had shown that they could defeat teams like Argentina, and they were in complete control of the game up until the hour mark as well. When it came to the first half, neither of the teams were trying to get the goal in. Both of the teams were involved in so many fouls and the midfield battles, and just getting to the final third, just the box-to-box battles that were constantly going on. And both teams, in a way, wanted to see out the first half because it didn't feel like either of the team was going to score. And as the second half rolled by, both teams came out with a different strategy. They came out with a different sort of mindset than the first half. And it's like they didn't want to be involved in as many challenges and as many fouls anymore. They wanted to go attack, they wanted to find some spaces, and they wanted to take more of the game on. And this is why England, as long as they were attacking Argentina, as long as they were taking the game to Argentina, as long as they were threatening the Argentinian national team, threatening their defenders, getting corners, getting free kicks, England had the edge over Argentina. And it all ultimately came to fruition when Anthony Gordon scored that beautiful goal. It was a simply fantastic goal. If you watched that in real time, it was an amazing goal. But then they went on to do the same mistake that Egypt, that Switzerland did commit against them. When they had all the control of the game, they could have taken Argentina to another 2 or 3 goals even. They didn't. They chose to sit back. And this is what is so surprising about Thomas Tuchel. Because after all his signs, after all the promise that he had showed in the previous games, he went completely contrary to his approach. England had an edge up until the hour mark, or even up until a minute before Argentina scored their first goal. Argentina had been trying for a long time to have that good of a chance as Enzo did, to be able to score those kinds of goals. And the England defense and Pickford had been challenged after the England goal for some time then. It's not like Argentina were taking on so many chances on their own. It's not like they were creating all those chances based off their own efforts, because It was because England were allowing them to do so, and anyone could see it. Anyone who has seen England for the past few years could see that that was going to happen. Anyone who has seen Argentina for the past few years, for the past few games, even in this World Cup, could see that happening. England ultimately choked and followed the same trajectory that every other team has done against Argentina and every other England team has done for the past few years. But Thomas Tuchel decided to close out the game with the same tactics as he did against Mexico. And that was never going to work against a team like Argentina, who are so ruthless and so unrelenting in their attacks. They are going to keep attacking until the very last minute if you allow them to do so. Especially Enzo Fernandez, who had been taking shots like the one he scored for a long time in that game. And he was only missing by a few inches in the past few tries that he had. And ultimately, when he had the chance, he scored that screamer. He scored that amazing goal. If you do something like that consistently, a player with the caliber of Enzo, a player with the caliber of Messi or Lautaro Martinez, it is bound to be a goal. It is bound to be a defeat for your team. And this is what happened with England. They self-sabotaged, just like Egypt did to a large extent, just like Switzerland did. It's not like Argentina were completely inevitable. It's like England contributed to a large extent in making them inevitable. And yes, it is the fault of Thomas Tuchel's substitution. He took off Declan Rice, he took off Anthony Gordon, and he brought on Ezri Konsa. He brought on defenders. And that was not the wisest of moves. When you know you have a team that can challenge Argentina, that can challenge the Argentinian defense, and you know that Argentina don't have that good of a defense, you know they can concede goals like the one they had in the game previously only, and you still have a chance to score. England did still have a chance to score in the very dying minute of the game, but they just couldn't. Because to do so, you need to have some attackers on the pitch. By the time Rashford came on, it was too late. And he was only just one of the couple attackers added onto the pitch. England were playing with 6 defenders. That was a really shocking thing to see. Because if you are going to take a team as ferocious in attack as Argentina, with defenders, you know England don't have the best defense in the world. You need to have a strong midfield presence. You need to have someone who can control and orchestrate your entire midfield and connect your entire defense with the attack. Against a team like Argentina, you need to have someone like Spain do with Rodri. And this is why Spain won against France, because they had composure, they had control of the game. They wanted to attack up until the very last minute. They didn't want to sit back, even after France were trying to attack in the second half. Even after France were trying to take Spain on in the dying minutes of the game, Spain had control of the game because of players like Rodri, because of players in their defense, Cucurella, Pedro Porro and everyone else. They wanted to take the game on. They wanted to bring the fight to France. England didn't want to bring the fight to Argentina. They wanted to sit back and they wanted to be passive observers of the game to a large extent. And against a team like Argentina, it was never going to work. Because if you allow them to take their chances, they will do so. And in a game against Argentina, attack is the best form of defense. And this is what is so surprising, so shocking about Thomas Tuchel's plan here was because you would expect a coach like Thomas Tuchel to know better. A coach as intelligent and a coach as technically adept as Thomas Tuchel is, you would expect much better from him. A coach as smart as Thomas Tuchel, you would expect so much more from him. You would expect him to see this all before it all even happens. But he didn't. And yes, a lot of people are now complaining about Thomas Tuchel's omissions in the English team. He didn't pick Phil Foden, he didn't pick colepalmer, he didn't pick Adam Wharton. He didn't pick some of the more creative players that England has to offer. And yes, it was always going to be a major criticism if England were to go out in this tournament in a fashion like this. But again, it all comes down to the fact that these players had not had the best of seasons and you couldn't have relied upon them. And what England achieved with the team they have, they still were the better team than Argentina, who are the world champions. With the team that they went on with, if Phil Foden, if colepalmer can get to the level that they have shown us previously, can get to their best, England might just go on to win the Euros in 2028. And this is perhaps why Thomas Tuchel is staying as the England manager. This is perhaps the reason why Thomas Tuchel is being retained, because he has shown that he has the ability to follow a different game plan as the previous managers. Even if he chose to not do so in the final 30 minutes, he has shown it in the previous games. And I think it will be a significant learning curve for Tuchel and this England team, and it will only go on to aid them in the Euros campaign. Thomas Tuchel would be a more mature manager by then. The English team would be more mature. And perhaps we could see Foden or Palmer or someone else come back to their best and contribute to this English team. I'm pretty sure that Thomas Tuchel didn't want to omit them, but he ultimately didn't have a choice with the kinds of seasons that those players had had. He had to choose the best team that he could pull off. And if those players had been there, England might not have reached this level either. So yes, it is Thomas Tuchel's fault that England went out in the fashion that they did. Yes, it is his fault that England didn't follow the game plan that they should have, and that England are now out and competing for the third place now. But he has shown that he might just win England the Euros. And if he can follow the approach that he did in the Croatia game, in the Mexico game, in the Norway game even, England are going to win the Euros. Anyways, that was it for the video. What did you feel about the game? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to read my articles about sports, film, TV, anti-AI stances culture, the link is in the description below. Go check it out. And I'll see you guys very soon. This is our signing off again.